Welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into what is probably the most famous David and Goliath story in modern business history. Look, we all know how the story ends, right? Netflix won, Blockbuster lost. But the real reason why, it's honestly completely different from what most people think. Blockbuster wasn't just crushed by better technology. No, they were actually destroyed by a massive financial trap of their own making.
To really get how this happened, I want you to picture a boardroom in Dallas, Texas. The year is 2000. Two guys from a tiny, practically unknown startup are sitting across from the absolute undisputed kings of the video rental industry, and they have a proposal. Their offer is incredibly simple. They say, buy our company for $50 million. And Blockbuster's executive team, they look at them with pure amusement. I mean, they just see this niche DVD by mail service that isn't even turning a profit yet. So famously, they literally laugh the founders of Netflix right out of the room. Well, that single meeting changed the entire course of entertainment history. Think about this. At their absolute peak, Blockbuster was opening a brand new store somewhere in the world roughly every single day. They had 9,000 locations. Fast forward to today, and Blockbuster is basically a ghost. There's exactly one store left in the entire world, hanging on in Bend, Oregon, and it's mostly just kept open as a quirky tourist novelty. Meanwhile, what about that tiny startup they laughed at? Well, that initial $50 million offer turned into a company worth well over $300 billion today, with hundreds of millions of subscribers all over the globe. Crazy, right? But here's the thing. Blockbuster didn't just make some casual, arrogant mistake that day in Dallas. They were fundamentally trapped. Which brings us to Section 1, Blockbuster's Golden Trap and the hidden cost of success. Back in the early 2000s, Blockbuster absolutely ruled the home movie world. Total market dominance. Their annual revenue hit a staggering $6 billion. I mean, they were the default destination for every Friday night. You'd walk in, grab that bucket of buttery popcorn, browse the crowded aisles. It felt completely invincible. But behind the scenes, their business model hid a really dark secret. It didn't just rely on rental fees. It actually relied on you being forgetful. As the saying goes, late fees were the real profit engine. Industry estimates from back then suggested that late fees alone were generating hundreds of millions of dollars every single year for Blockbuster. That is a massive chunk of money coming directly from customer frustration rather than customer satisfaction. And here's the kicker. They desperately needed that late fee cash just to cover their absolutely crushing overhead costs. Think about it. 9,000 expensive real estate leases, tens of thousands of employees, massive daily payrolls, huge electricity and maintenance bills just to keep the neon lights buzzing. They were fundamentally entirely dependent on penalizing you just to survive their own massive scale. Let's move to Section 2, removing the customer grudge and weaponizing frustration. So one of those deeply frustrated customers was a guy named Reed Hastings. Legend actually has it that his local store hit him with this hefty late fee for returning the movie Apollo 13 a few days past its due date. He felt embarrassed. He felt angry. But instead of just complaining about it to his friends, he partnered up with Mark Randolph in 1997 to start a brand new company. Their journey from those early days to total global dominance is now a fully documented textbook case study in digital disruption and strategic reinvention. Because they didn't just have a good idea, guys. They literally weaponized consumer anger. Here's the radical core of that original Netflix pitch. You pay a flat monthly subscription, you get movies delivered directly to your mailbox, and you keep them for as long as you want. Absolutely no late fees. Ever. They zeroed right in on the exact thing people absolutely hated most about renting movies, and they just removed it entirely from the equation. But you might be wondering, why then? Well, think about VHS tapes. They were bulky, heavy, and incredibly expensive to mail. But DVDs? They were thin, light, and surprisingly durable. The DVD basically provided this brief, perfect technological window that made an entirely new mail delivery business physically possible. Netflix just happened to have the perfect idea at the exact right moment in the timeline of tech. And this dynamic brilliantly illustrates what was really going on. Blockbuster wasn't actually outsmarted. They were outstructured. See, if Blockbuster had removed late fees to copy Netflix, it would have totally gutted their most profitable revenue stream, all while they still had to pay rent for 9,000 physical stores. It was a massive fixed cost trap. Netflix, on the other hand, had 0 stores and barely any physical infrastructure. They were built from the ground up purely to remove customer friction. Which leads right into Section 3, the art of self-disruption, or basically killing your own success.
Now, in 2007, Netflix did something incredibly aggressive. They launched an internet streaming service called Watch Now. And if you really think about it, that decision was super strange at the time. Their DVD by mail business was highly profitable, it was still growing, but they proactively attacked their own wildly successful business model simply because they knew the technological window of the physical DVD wasn't going to last forever. Looking at this timeline really puts it all into perspective. Just notice the gap here. Netflix actually disrupted themselves with streaming in 2007. That is a full 3 years before Blockbuster even filed for bankruptcy in 2010. Most companies will wait until a profitable business actually starts declining before they even think about investing in its replacement. But Netflix, they tore down a business that was still succeeding completely on purpose. And they didn't just dip their toes in either. They totally mastered the underlying tech. They invested heavily in adaptive bitrate streaming to kill off buffering. Then they built Open Connect, which is their very own global content delivery network, literally placing their servers right inside internet service providers. So while Blockbuster was busy drowning in a sea of real estate debt, Netflix was quietly, systematically building the infrastructure of the future. Co-founder Mark Randolph actually summarized their survival beautifully with this one quote. He said, "If you are unwilling to disrupt yourself, there will always be someone willing to disrupt your business for you." At the end of the day, Netflix survived because they were never romantically attached to the physical disc. The only thing they were attached to was fulfilling the customer's actual needs. All right, let's wrap this up with Section 4, the real competitor, and turning the lens squarely on you. The stark reality here is true across literally all industries. Size is not a shield. In fact, it can be a cage. Having a massive, storied brand history and totally dominating your market can actually make you structurally paralyzed, slow-moving, and just deeply afraid to change things up. Make no mistake, Blockbuster felt completely safe right up until the exact moment they collapsed. So I really want you to take a hard look at your own work and ask yourself this rather provocative question. What do your clients secretly resent about doing business with you? Seriously, is there a late fee hidden somewhere in your own business model? Is there some clunky process or penalty where you're actually profiting from their annoyance? Because if there is, you are incredibly vulnerable. I'm going to leave you with this definitive thought to take away from our deep dive today. The most dangerous competitor is the one who removes the exact thing your customers already hate about you. They aren't just out there trying to build a marginally better product. They are actively trying to cure a grudge. And that right there is exactly how a tiny mail-order startup took down a $6 billion empire. So before you get a little too comfortable with your current business model, ask yourself, are you playing the role of Netflix or are you Blockbuster? If this kind of structural collapse surprised you, just wait until you see our next explainer. Coke and Pepsi have literally been at war for over a century. And the craziest part? The real battle was never actually about taste. We're diving deep into that 100-year war next time, so definitely make sure you join us for that one. See you there.